Oh, just checking the microphone up here. Hi, surprise edition, yeah. Didn't do it yesterday, and I'll get into the reason why I didn't do it yesterday, but the Geek Beach is back. We are doing it early on a Wednesday. Some of you folks might be headed home from your commute, so you're going to watch this on the repeat. A couple of you might just be like, whatever, put it on whenever. But it's an early edition of the Geek Beach. It's a Wednesday day, new comic book day. Is it new for anything else? A couple of things are new. The new Chucky show starts today. It's going to come out after I talk about this, so I won't be talking about it here, but I like the Chucky show a lot, actually. So eventually we'll talk about the Chucky show. But there's a couple of things we're going to talk about here. Surprising amount of stuff that dropped today, actually, that I wanted to just kind of like catch up on, because it's all kind of fascinating, I think worth mentioning and worth talking about. And then we got a movie we're going to review that I didn't do an actual review for. And then we got a couple of TV shows we're going to talk about, like we do every week. And I actually have a couple comic books to talk about too, surprisingly. So right off the bat, let's get into this because it's kind of an important thing to talk about when we just start off. It is the Universal Monsters month. The Universal Monsters, not Monsters, Monsters. Monsters, you get it. Creature from the Black Lagoon video is out now for you to enjoy. I had a super fun time with that one. I really like talking Creature from the Black Lagoon, so that is available for you to check out. Coming up next week will be the next edition of the Universal Monsters Month, where we talk about Frankenstein's monsters, and then the week after that, we will be talking the Metaluna mutant in This Island Earth. Two things I love. So that's there. More content. I think we'll do some surprise content too. I got a couple of machinations underway that could be happening, but that is for a later discussion time. All it stands now is that happy Halloween. This is the first Geek Beach in October ever, and it's kind of exciting to jump into October. I love Halloween stuff. I hate the idea of Halloween because I just don't want people to come near me, but I love costumes. So that surprised me, and this is just like a little thing. I guess we'll rant on this for a second. So there are a few Spirit Halloween stores that have opened up around my area. A lot of Killer Clowns from Outer Space merchandise. I wonder if like some new licensing thing came out where people can talk about Killer Clowns all of a sudden. I was just like, there's props, there's actual stands you can get of all the clowns and costumes. I'm like, who's a kid that wants that? I don't know. I thought it was weird, but that's exciting. Beetlejuice stuff I get. But why that? And why is there nothing for the 40th anniversary of Elvira? This would be the perfect time to get more merchandise out there. I don't know. Just crazy. But as I said earlier on in the past couple minutes, there was a reason I didn't do this yesterday. And that was because of Todd freaking McFarlane. You can blame this entire day on Todd McFarlane. Because he was like, guess what? Spawn movie news on Tuesday. And I'm like, you're actually getting the go-ahead to do that, Todd? That doesn't seem likely. But he did. He got the go-ahead to go make a Spawn movie. From Blumhouse of all people. We got a little bit of Blumhouse news to talk about, actually. So he's like, it's coming Tuesday. So I'm like, okay, something to talk about on the live show. Let's talk about all the stuff you're doing for the Spawn movie, Todd. And he's like, actually, we'll delay it until Wednesday. So I'm like, well, I'll delay this until Wednesday then, because I'll talk about Spawn news. I think more than the next Marvel movie, that whatever that's going to be when it's coming out, I would rather see a Spawn movie. I don't even like Spawn. I've talked about this enough. You can't see it on here, but I do have a Spawn action figure on this shelf on like one of the lower levels. I like Spawn as a concept, mainly because it's like this is where independent comics hit their tipping point and became their own sustainable idea. Spawn's not very cool though. At least not to me. There's so much going on in Spawn. There's so much stupid stuff in Spawn, but as a toy line, it's freaking sweet. I've been putting off since the announcement of like the new McFarlane Spawn figures of buying them, because I don't have the shelf space and I can't justify spending that much on a character I don't like. But damn, if Todd doesn't know how to make a cool design for a toy, man, he nailed it. He nailed it at every turn. Every Spawn figure looks amazing. But we did get some Spawn movie news, and it's not a lot. It's just kind of like it's actually happening. So Blumhouse is producing a Spawn film. That is exciting to me, and maybe only to me, because I'm just like, oh, that's the perfect place for it. Don't give me some big studio bullshit happening here. Just give me like a Blumhouse made Spawn film. You got something special on your hands, and I think that is super apparent in what this is going to be. And there's a couple of other writers attached. The writer of the Joker film, one of the writers of the Joker film. I hate that film, so that doesn't buoy confidence. But also Mark Spellman is coming off of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Will be writing the script too. And I'm like, how many people do you need? There's a third person. And I'm like, Todd, I am surprised by you not writing it yourself. That, I think, surprises me. That surprises me more than anything else about the Spawn news, is that Todd was kind enough to let somebody else write it. Because that does not sound like the Todd I know. The Todd I know is like, I'm writing, I'm directing, I'm producing. It seems like he's backing off enough where he's going to let other people get involved and do something special with it, which is perfect. That's what Todd needed for this entirety. If it's just Todd doing this, it doesn't work. However, they did not yet announce a director, which I could see where he was like, let me do it. Did he direct the music video? I think Todd did direct something before. It wasn't like a big project, but I believe Todd did have some connections towards something, and then he did make something. Okay. He's a good choice. Like, it's his baby. Nobody's going to play with it the way he plays with it, so I'm on board for letting him do whatever he wants with Spawn, because who else is going to capture the insanity? You can only imagine it's going to do financially well, and then we're going to get the Spawn universe, and I'm just saying, if a Spawn movie does well, I have to imagine, and maybe this will be a whole other topic we could get into another day, but the first Spawn movie, you have to imagine it's going to be like the street level homeless guy fighting, like, the Violator and dealing with like his wife and all that stuff and the Sam and Twitch stuff. And then it's going to be like angels and demons and all these other creatures and spawns from history. That's definitely a sequel thing. You cannot blow your load on a Spawn movie in the first one. If you're Todd and you want this to be your thing, you got to take chances, but you also got to, work the magic a little bit of foreplay, because you could be a big property. A Spawn movie does not need to be $100 million. Solid 70, solid 50, I think you could tell a good Spawn story and do something fun like that, but who's to say? For some reason, Jamie Foxx is still attached to this thing. It's been a long time in talks with him attached to it. We'll see if that actually happens. It goes through, but don't be surprised if this gets fast-tracked to like a 2025 release. If the summer of Avengers Kang Dynasty, don't be surprised if between Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars, Todd McFarlane's like, don't you worry, the next best thing of comic books is here. Your Spawn movie is here. Don't be surprised if that happens, because there is a huge chance it will. If Jamie Foxx actually decides he wants to do this, sure. If he doesn't, I can guarantee they can find a Spawn hole fast. But Spawn, we're actually physically doing a Spawn. It's going to happen in our lifetimes. Yes, it already happened. Yes, it had an animated show. Yes, it had a very successful comic book and toy line. But in my lifetime, while I am actively doing this content, we're going to be talking about a Spawn movie, which means I have to talk more about Spawn on this channel, which means I'm going to have to put aside my prejudice for hating the Spawn franchise and actually get into this. I teased it, I think, earlier in a Geek Wave episode where I was like, for like a bonus content I do of something, I should just get every issue of Spawn and just live stream myself going insane and reading it. Who would want to see me live stream for 10 hours with 300 books of Spawn, losing my mind? I would hate it, but I do it for the content. You got to do stuff for the views, man. And Spawn is one of those things. And if Spawn is successful, it's only a matter of time before some of those other guys in his era are like, oh, because wasn't Liefeld like, we're doing The Prophet or something? Oh, I'd hate that. I would hate that so much. But you could imagine, like, I'd love to see a Savage Dragon. Like, that's actually a concept that would be cool. Not Spawn, but I want it. I think more that I want to see Kang Dynasty or Secret Wars, I want a Spawn movie. And I hate Spawn with a burning passion. But what else do you do, man? What else do you do? It's Spawn. Oh, boy. But that's not all of the Blumhouse news we have, actually. So I just followed Blum. I just followed Mr. Blum on Twitter, and he was like, you're not gonna believe this. You're not gonna believe this, guys. But the same day we're talking about Spawn, we have another big franchise that wants to come play in our box for a bit. Five Nights at Freddy's, man. And I'm like, yeah, of course. I'm amazed it's taken them this long to get a Five Nights at Freddy like movie out there. We've had parody ones like Willy's Wonderland, but makes sense. First off, that game is really fun. I've played the first one. I know there's a bunch of them, and there's like a huge lore and everything behind it. Oh, it's going to be a cool movie, man. Like, that concept alone lends itself so perfectly to a movie format. Those jump scares lend themselves so perfectly to a movie format. The rich history and lore lends itself to a franchise. And Jim Henson the creature puppet people from Jim Henson's company are going to be making all of the animatronics. We're going to be using actual animatronics. Like, I love that so much. I mean, I'm not the biggest Five Nights at Freddy's fan. I barely know the franchise, but just the idea that we can do that and we are going to do that is pretty damn exciting. That's like a really cool thing. I'm surprised it's, again, taken them that long to do. Because what else would you do? You know, there's no other franchise name that has that. Even if you are not like a fan of the games or like interested in the franchise or anything, you know that name. It's become so big. It's also one step closer, and this might ruin a lot of lives. It is one step closer to an Among Us movie, which you have to imagine. We're getting a Mario trailer tomorrow, to Mario. That's a good joke. Mario trailer to Mario, and now we're getting a Five Nights at Freddy film. The Last of Us looks incredible. You have to imagine there is somebody in some boardroom screaming to David Zaslav or whoever owns the rights to these things like, okay, we're tracking the numbers. Currently, the projections for the Super Mario film are through the roof. People are loving The Last of Us. Five Nights at Freddy's has great buzz. We are going to spend $100 million and buy the rights to the Fortnite movie. We're going to make a Fortnite movie. We're going to buy an Among Us movie. I have to imagine that's a negotiation. I also have to imagine, and let's just jump ship over to the Mario news. There were some leaked images. I love a good leaked image of a Nintendo property for a movie. It's a great joke. You know, when Sonic was announced, people were like, that's ugly. And then it's like, here's the Mario leak. They showed us a poster. So much is going on in that world, and I get it. There's this thing that I don't understand when it comes to Mario where people don't realize, like, simplicity is what makes that work. And the over-designed world isn't really jiving with me, but I think it'll be okay. Like, again, the trailer's tomorrow. I'm thinking about doing like an actual trailer reaction because I think that's going to be one that could genuinely surprise me. I just hate doing trailer reactions. Maybe I'll talk about it on Instagram and TikTok, and I'll just upload it to YouTube in just like a short video format, right? Maybe that's what I'll do. The thing, though, that I love about the Mario stuff is people reacting to his ass. That's like the kind of stuff I live for. Like when you are doing a Chris Pratt led Mario movie, you are setting yourself up for criticism on every level. And that excites me to no end. I love the idea of just a bunch of people on the internet collectively making this thing a joke, because that is how you got Minions Rise of Gru to make so much money. And I want this to be successful. Even if the Mario movie is bad, I want more Nintendo movies. If we can crack this to $1 billion, Luigi's Mansion spinoff, WarioWare World movie spinoff, Koopaling spinoff, Olympic Games spinoff, Star Fox spinoff, Metroid, Legend of Zelda, all those things would happen. And they're going to happen. We're going to get some good stuff coming, guys. More than anything in this world when it comes to Nintendo stuff, I want a Star Fox film. I think if you were to do a Star Fox film right, it could be the rival to what Star Wars is to some people. And that's a huge statement, a huge, crazy thing to say. But it could be. It could be, you know. And Donkey Kong, oh my goodness, a Seth Rogen Donkey Kong? That's where we're going to? My goodness. Butter my biscuits and put that in my oven, man. Like, that is such a cool concept. I love that. Tomorrow, a trailer for the weirdest Mario film of all time. We're going to see a trailer. It's exciting. video games are making the jump to movies now, and it's kind of interesting. There was that what's the name of that show? There's this show on Paramount Plus. Is it The Players or The Player or The Gamers or something? It's like, it's kind of Mythic Quest meets Ted Lasso, but it's like an esports game, and this guy's like 30 and he's nearing retirement. He's like getting a new team together. I wanted to watch it, but I was just like, there's too much content, and I don't have the patience for something I know is going to cringe me out. So I didn't watch it, but just like the idea that the kind of like esports and e-gaming and all that stuff is kind of like making the jump to like the big leagues of film and popular culture in terms of just everybody now. That's kind of cool. Is it? Yeah, I guess it is kind of cool. There's nothing wrong about that. It's just something we're doing. So that's kind of fun. That is kind of fun. You know? Is there any more gaming news we could talk about? Not really, I guess, but yeah, you get it. You get it. You guys get it. So another piece of news I did want to talk about, and I'll be talking about it a lot more because this is generally a topic I'm curious on, is this trailer for a David Harbour movie called Violent Night. Now, Violent Night, of course, a play on Silent Night, is what if Santa was delivering presents to a home that was being the Purged or John Wicked, and Santa had to John Wick. I didn't see Bullet Train because I'm kind of sick of, like, you know, Leach and Kieslowski getting all these movies made. I just don't want to see them. There's so many of just like, what if John Wick in a location? What if John Wick but Bob Odenkirk? What if John Wick but on a train? Like, I don't care for it. But maybe it's just like the Christmas spirit in me that gets kind of amped for the idea of a Santa John Wick. It looked bloody. It looked intense. There were some really creative jokes in there. I'm not going to say they're brilliant, but as much as the concept is played out to me where I'm like, oh, everybody wanted to be John Wick. Now everything's John Wick and it's tiresome. Santa using like some presents to kick somebody's ass. How could I hate that? How could I hate? I couldn't. I would be lying to myself if I said I hated that. And I don't hate that at all. It looks genuinely cool. So Violent Night? Sure. I'm always fascinated by David Harbour's career because it feels like he's just waiting for that jump to like an actual Oscar contender, if that makes sense. In our lifetime, David Harbour will get an Oscar. I think that is fair to say. But he's picked his project so interestingly for where he can play in the wheelhouse of that character. And I think that's very impressive. And when finally they're like an auteur director is like, oh, this guy could play something similar to what Fraser is doing with The Whale, then we can get something made there. Interesting. I think we're going to see it, but I like that. You know, Santa's protecting Santa's dieharding in like a rich person's house. That's how badass is that? How did it take them that long to think of that concept, you know? Like, you could do anything as Santa, and this is something that I'm surprised nobody has thought of before. But it's so fun. It's really fun. Speaking of Fraser, and not that one, but we're going to go over to the world of Frasier, because, baby, the Blues are calling again. More tossed salad and more scrambled eggs. Kelsey Grammer is coming back to television. I love Frasier. Like, I've talked about that movie, or that show a lot. I think it's awesome and funny and creative. I don't understand why you'd want to come back, but I guess Kelsey is low on cash. I don't think anybody of the main cast still living would be above coming back. But maybe focus on the kids. And look, if you want to get somebody else to play his son, maybe contrarian, like the opposite energy of what he is, I'll do it. I could play 30. You know, like if they want someone like, oh no, his son was his son Frederick? Frederick has become just like his dad. He's not like a, you know, scholar or this person who likes the finer things. He wants to sit on a couch, play his video games, rip his bong. I'll do it. I will do all of that for Kelsey Grammer money. It'll be fun. I'm just genuinely amazed at what Paramount is doing. And that leads into our next topic here. I don't know what I would say the best studio of 2022 has been. Obviously, in terms of numbers, you have to look at Disney and 20th Century and Marvel and all like the Lucasfilm stuff connected together. But if you want to know my honest opinion, and that's what you're here for, I think the best film studio this year has been Paramount. I think they have been number one at the box office for a lot of their big releases. Top Gun Maverick, The Lost City, Smile, which we're going to talk about, and there was another horror movie that they were number one for. I can't remember. Was it Orphan? Something else they were number one for, okay? Those are all good. I think their like scripted content on their service has been way more interesting than a lot of the other ones. The Offer is the most bizarre piece of filming I've ever seen in my life, and as much as I hate that show, I'm so glad I can look at that and have that in my life, you know? And they have all the Star Trek stuff, and they have all the Transformers stuff, and all these really interesting pieces of content that I'm genuinely impressed by. I think they're winning. I really think they have been the most like creator friendly, the most audience friendly, and they've been doing a lot of interesting stuff. And that I just completely forgot about this. We got the trailer for the Blue's Clues movie, with it's No Way Home, and look. I'm not the biggest Blue's Clues fan, but I can definitely play around in the house for a bit, you know? Sometimes I'll get a letter and wonder where it's from. But holy cow, did that Blue's Clues trailer blow my mind. I think more than any other trailer we've talked about so far. That Blue's Clues trailer was gorgeous. The jokes were funny. The people coming back felt naturalistic. The salt and pepper shaker getting on a plane to come back to find them. I love it. That's another one I'm so excited for. And then we got like the Pitch Perfect movie, the Pitch Perfect sequel coming out soon. The Monster High is coming soon. And I'm like, these are all things I'm excited for. I love that. But they also just had a big movie release in theaters this weekend that was the number one at the domestic box office and probably worldwide too. I'd have to look at the numbers a little bit more. 33 million in its opening week. Smile. I can't do the smile right. I'm not good at smiling. Let's just be real. This face doesn't scream somebody that should smile all the time. But we got Smile, the new horror film. I went to see it on the weekend. To my delight, something I have been kind of jonesing for in my cinema going experience is more youths coming out to the theaters. And look, I have issues with young people and just people with no etiquette in the theater, but I also love a good visceral experience of a bunch of people in a movie theater together watching a piece of content. That's what Smile was to me. A lot of young people coming out to see Smile, which made me very happy because I've seen a lot of movies this year. The majority of the audience was young adult and older. So I'm in my 20s, my mid-20s. That was the demographic I have mainly seen watching films. But with Smile, the majority of the demographic in the theater, I think aside from me, the person I went to see it with, and a couple of other more mature, like people in their 30s and 40s, the demographic was under 20. A bunch of teenagers looking to get their fix of horror this season, and I think Smile did good for that. And I think Smile works more for that demographic because not just because they're younger, but because they probably haven't seen a lot of these mid-2000s horror movies, because that is what Smile felt like to me. It's fine. I don't have any real criticisms of Smile except for like the last act, where I think it lends itself away from the story it's telling to be more like a shock value, like theater moment where you're thinking. And I don't care about that. I just didn't think it worked for the story. But the narrative it's telling, the way the story plays out, the characters, the actors feel very 2000s. And that's kind of cool. I didn't really like get into horror in that era. It was just something that I always had, like when I'd go to like a friend's house, or we'd have like a big get together, people like, let's watch this scary movie. And I was always like, this isn't interesting to me. But that kind of story, it's kind of cool to see it like come back. And it's not as good as like Barbarian or anything else, I think, really, that came out this year. I think like The Black Phone and Barbarian, and Orphan First Kill, is that the one? I think those are all more interesting and better made. But Smile's cool. Like, it's a fun concept. There's some really good scares in there. There's a person who sat a couple rows ahead of me in the audience that spilt their popcorn. They were just like flipping their hands up when things happen. I'm like, dude, you're one of the adults here. Why are you the one who's tripping out? I love seeing that. I love a good story when you can talk about something that happens in the theater when you're watching a movie like that. And one of my favorite things was this group of like a lot of, I think there were maybe 16, 17-year-old kids. And this one kid who had the exact anxiety I do when I'm going to a movie was just looking at his phone all the time, like, where are my friends? Why aren't they here yet? What's going on? His one friend comes in and is like, dude, let's go get popcorn right now. He's like, it's 9. Like, it's going to start now. He was just so stressed. And I'm like, that is so me. and his friends reluctantly pulled him out, and they made him go get popcorn. And he came in at the previews again, but he looked really pissed. I'm like, that is just me to a T. But look, a smile that follows you and it kills you. It's a message for trauma, and then I think later on in the movie, it moves away from that to be an actual entity, and that's where I'm kind of like, that is so 2000s, where you have to actually have a physical thing, because we can't have our audience actually like think about something for too long. If they start thinking about trauma, it's going to lead them down an uncomfortable path, and we can't have our audience do that. They have to fight something in the end. And I'm like, you don't, because if it's just like all these people, they see this smile and it's like this weird presence that they are experiencing that causes them to feel these things, that's a little bit more of a compelling story. And it worked fine. You know, what's her name? Miss Bacon at the beginning of the movie. Well, yeah. Again, Paramount. Again, I was talking about this with Paramount. Another message at the beginning of the film from the director and the star of the movie was up front like, hey, thanks guys for watching this. Movies are awesome. And I'm like, yeah, they are, dude. You're right. They are awesome. We're in a theater. We're watching movies. You're right. That is cool. You're just Tom Cruising it over here, and I can't complain. So I liked that. You know, it wasn't a great movie. The acting was fine. The jump scares were okay. I remember like another great moment was just when was Jesse T. Usher, I think is his name. He came on screen and everyone was like, hey, it's A-Train. Literally more than 4 people said that in the theater. I'm like, wow, that's awesome. And that's how I know The Boys is popular, when that guy, and he was probably the worst actor on like the actual movie, but it was okay. You know, it was a fine film that got its job done. I don't know. Again, Barbarian was better, and I'm not even like the biggest fan of Barbarian. I thought it was really well done, and then you got really ham-fisted with like the Weinstein kind of message of it all, where it's like, we don't want to support Me Too, but we're also not going to be in defense or against it. It's like, yeah, okay. That was fine. But Smile looked good. Well written. It was a solid film. I know there's a couple other horror films coming out. I probably won't be covering Halloween Ends because I haven't seen any of the more recent Halloweens. Pray for the Devil, maybe. I got a buddy who is probably going to want to see Pray for the Devil, so it's like, yeah, I'll watch like nuns doing exorcisms or something. I don't know what that is. Like a weird action movie with nuns? Okay, sure. But The Munsters that's more like my Halloween spirit. And I done a whole review on The Munsters. Please check that out, because why does it exist? It's great. I'm so glad it exists though. But we also have a couple things of television to talk about. A couple of stories I really like. A couple things that make me smile. Where should we start? Should we start with Andor? Because I didn't really get into it last week because sadly we got cut out. So I'm hoping I'll be able to fix it now and you guys will be able to get the full video and you can understand things a little bit better. But as we're going into this, so Andor episode 5 just came out. This show has just been setting up to this one moment since like the 3rd episode, and it's really just not getting there yet. And I think that's really cool, you know? It's like, how slow can we go? How long can it take us to get to this moment? That's a really fun thing to see. I'm really digging that. I'm really liking what we're seeing there. And it's like, okay, Diego Luna, I think his best acting thus far in the show has been in this moment. Like what he was able to do in this episode, play upset, play intense, play this guy so desperate for this power. Kind of cool. Honestly, kind of cool. Like he got to do a lot of fun. He was able to hold his own in some really badass ways. The guy from, what's his name? The man from The Bear is in here. And he just got cast in a Jennifer Lawrence movie too. Like, he was so great. Just the slow tension of watching these people in a situation all realize like what they're doing for the same mission. Because, the Bear guy was like, I lost my brother and they messed up his farm. The kid was like, there is something about this freedom that we need to find. One of the other older men was like, I lost the woman I love. Like, this government is destroying our world. And it sucks, and it's not good. And we need to get better. We need to find more ways to get this done. And I'm like, yeah, you do. You're right. And then Cyril, or Cyril, like the weird guy who like started the attack in episode 3 and lost his job. Well, he went back home to mommy, and mommy was like, poured him a bowl of blue milk and stupid tricks, and was like, you gonna get your life together now, son? You gonna get your life together? What do you have any prospects, young man? Very, George Costanza, I thought, but I'm like, oh yeah, That's the sweet spot, honey. That is what we're here for. That is what we're all doing. That was fun. That was so cool and just interesting. That guy, I don't know the actor's name, but Cyril is such a fun character because he is just on the verge of anger at every moment. I love that. And what this show's done really well, aside from like the slow burn of setting up certain stuff, it's given agency to Mon Mothma. Her daughter doesn't love her. Her husband is just this piece of shit who can't get it together. You understand why she would be funding this rebellion where it's like, look at all these people just standing by and watching the world fall apart. I hate that. I need to do something about that. And then you look at things like, what's Stellan Skarsgård character? Luthen? Just this guy who is so desperate to get this going that he's losing track of his own humanity. You know, like, that's such a cool thing. But the way they're making like the Empire actually scary in like these quiet moments, I think that's really impressive. Like, one TIE fighter shouldn't be able to scare you, but it does. If they get caught, they could die. Just the way like the Empire's taking over this town, taking over an entire building complex just to have its base of operations, infrastructure, like that whole scene, anti-capitalist, of course that's Star Wars, anti-fascist, of course that's Star Wars. Just seeing all of that culminate in this beautiful story. Icing on a beautiful bloody cake, my friend. I adore that. I adore that so much. Very cool. Very fun. Andor's been great. I know it's probably going to be hesitant for some people where they're just like, this is slow. Why aren't they quipping? Why did nobody say, may the force be with you or anything? But I'm like, oh, it's so good. It is such a good burn, and all the characters feel realistic, and they have motives that make sense to each other, and not just to, like, the larger... Like, I look at the shows that have came out this year from Star Wars. The Book of Boba Fett, which was really weird if you really sit down and think about it. And Obi-Wan Kenobi really sucked. Like, the more I think about Obi-Wan, I'm like, you had 2 good moments at the end and then a bunch of mediocre whatever. And I don't hate Obi-Wan in the slightest. I'm just like, you compare this show and its realistic effects and the actual character work being done for the characters and the ambiance it's feeling and the burn it is giving you. And you're just like, oh shit, this is what we've been missing? We've been stuck with this crap for so long that we haven't even focused on what's coming out. I just can't believe Andor is their best looking show. And I kind of said this last week, but my goodness, give the Gilroys James Bond. Tony and Dan. Dan's been writing some of these episodes. Give them James Bond. Give them something gorgeous, Like, I love the way the show looks. And as soon as this is over, I want to see Tony Gilroy get more to do. And he's not even like an unknown. I just want like a bigger thing for him. I think that'd be so sweet, so cool. Andor's been fantastic. This episode has been fantastic. I cannot wait to see where the show's going to go because I genuinely don't know where Andor's going to go. I mean, I do because he dies. But you know what I mean. Where else is he going to go? It's kind of exciting. Isn't it? But we also have a couple other shows I want to talk about. No, nothing crazy. But let's see. House of the Dragon was freaking baller this week. So I was reading reports that this is like the first episode they filmed so you could get an actual tone of what the entire season was going to be like. And I'm like, that makes sense. So this is at the death of Leonor. I still don't know all the characters' name. But it was Daemon's wife and she died and they're at the funeral. And it leads to some really good tension where Aemond Targaryen, the son of the king, rides her dragon and he gets to do like a huge screaming match with all of the kids and the lines are drawn. The High Tower and Targaryens are going to be off in their own realm over there doing their thing. And Rhaenyra, her kids, are going to be off with Daemon because they finally get married. They've been teasing this for the entirety of the show. They're together now. I'm like, yeah. I can't believe I'm rooting for the niece and uncle relationship the most. Why am I? That's the magic of Game of Thrones. Just good old family-friendly incest. But no, like this episode... The kids acted great, and that's like your hardest like thing you have to get over is just how are the kids going to act? Well, they're going to act well, and they did act well, and they were smart, and they were creative, and they got so much shit done, and the kids were really fantastic, actually. It's honestly surprising, isn't it, that the kids did so well? But man, is it cool. Like, oh, that was so strong, and Emma Darcy and Olivia Cook are just doing so good, and Patty is just fantastic. I don't know if anybody else has really said this, but Patty, the man playing King Viserys, let's put him in a wheelchair, shave his head, and ship him off to Westchester because he would be a really good Professor X or Magneto. I think he's so, like everybody. I was so burned out on Game of Thrones, but I think this show really just said, nah, we can actually do something good here. I'm like, can you? Are you? You are. Holy shit, you are doing something good here. My bad, guys. Super impressive. Like, the effects look good. The episode was kind of dark, but I say to people, like, turn off your motion smoothing and bright up your fucking, like, television. Not everything has to be dark, you know? Such a good episode. Such a strong, visceral episode that I love what this show has been doing. And again, I'll talk more like Rings of Power at the end when like the whole season's done because they're filming season 2 currently. Was that Mordor? They introduced like Mordor or Mount Doom or something. I'm not a Tolkien head, so I don't really know, but that's coming. So cool. But this is the show that I really wanted to talk about because it's interesting to me. So Anne Rice, I believe she had passed away recently, but it looks like she was able to sell, or her estate or her people, whoever handles like her copyright, were able to sell a bunch of their movies or a bunch of like their stories and their IP to AMC because there's a new one of Alexander Daddario coming out in February or January of next year. But this year, right now, at the beginning of October, we got Interview with the Vampire. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's about time we rebooted this. I don't want the cultural perception to be the Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt one, for obvious reasons, them being that Tom Cruise is a weirdo and Brad Pitt is probably an abuser, and we're not going to get into that anymore. But it's like, it's not accurate, and they don't really kissy. Like, I want to see, when we're doing Interview with the Vampire, go full gay. And you should. So who do we got here? We got a guy set in 2022 during the pandemic who looks a lot like Anthony Bourdain, who is going to go interview Grey Worm from Game of Thrones. I'm like, that's cool because he's like Luc Lepont or something. I know the other one's Lestat Lionheart because that's a great name. I don't remember the other one this is playing, but it changes the material up enough where it makes sense that this is how the story is being portrayed. So we are, for some reason, setting it in the pandemic. That's a weird choice. That really dates it when you watch it. I don't understand why you had to do it, but I'm not going to complain. I'm just living through that time, and I don't need like a sickly vampire man to tell me what's going on, you know? But whatever, fine. If you want to have a vampire man show up, that's cool. But the majority is a flashback taking place in 1910 in New Orleans, where our Grey Worm man here is kind of like running the streets for like the Negro. And I don't know if I should have said that, but you know what I mean. So this guy is running the streets, and he's kind of like working at some brothels, just kind of keeping the flow going there. What really surprised me, aside from it being said in the pandemic, was John DiMaggio saying the N-word. And I'm like, should you have said that? Are we allowed to say that? Okay. He's the only respected man of color in the entire town. And I'm like, okay, that's an idea, I guess. And as the story progresses, you see his family. His sister is off to get married. His mother is so in support of all this. They are a wealthy family. And his brother, Paul, is kind of off in his own world, to say. He's a man of God. He sees this new, like, French man coming to town named Lestat, who is kind of a seductress. He literally calls him the devil, which he's right. And it leads to, one, you can say the N-word, you can get gruesomely violent, but we still can't have a full-on gay sex scene on AMC, which I'm like, okay, your morals lie somewhere. That's fine. You do what you need to do with that. Okay. But yeah, they kissy, makey, bangy. And I'm like, yeah, you should. Go all out on it this time, you know? Like, we were scared to do it in the 90s, and we had, like, the two biggest movie stars of all time that we couldn't let them really, like, commit to the bit. So, these two guys, yeah, go for it. Go crazy. And they do. And it does feel very, like, of the time where you see that Grey Worm is like, well, I was a gay black man in a time where you couldn't be either of those things, so I couldn't really live, and this guy gave me some liberation. You get a couple really beautiful scenes, an entire sequence out like the wedding and the day after, where Paul kills himself and he falls off this, or he jumps off the side of like the roof. I think that's a beautiful scene. Just like this guy who so close to God doesn't see how far away he is from him. And I think that's just like a really powerful moment that this story presented. And then the scene in the church where you see the Grey Worm was just, I've lost everything. I've got nothing left. I'm done. He wants to just be a better man, but he can't. And then Lestat comes in and kills all the priests and is like, I can make you the most powerful thing in the world, and we can kiss forever. So he does that, becomes a vampire. Next episode, next week. I was genuinely surprised by it. The production design was really good. Like, it looked great. The acting was great. The cinematography was well done. Everything was working on its own really well. The story itself just might not be like the best thing ever. And Anne Rice, again, you can't really copy that magic, but I still think like the pandemic stuff was a weird angle to turn for that story. Like, you really didn't need to do that. If you just decided we're not going to do that, I would be okay with any choice you made. Honestly, I could get by it. But the fact that they're like, no, we're going to do it. I'm like, okay. You don't have to. Like, you physically don't have to do that. But, okay. So, Interview with the Vampire, I'm going to keep watching. I'm not saying it captivated my interest perfectly, but the acting was great. The story is something I'm familiar with, so I do want to see how they're going to spin this yarn and maybe go into some very interesting directions. I don't know. But to me, it was compelling enough to keep going. And I'm curious to see the changes they're going to make. Because I believe it was renewed for a second season. Which, do you finish the whole story in the first season and then tell us what the new one, the second one? Like, where would you really go with that? But I don't know. I thought it was fine. Kind of cool. Not the best. I think House of the Dragon won this week for me. And we got a really weird Rick and Morty episode again. If I had a nickel for every time Rick and Morty did incest this season, it's twice. I'd have a dime. It's weird. And then last season was the incest baby. I'm like, what is going on, you know? Something weird is happening at the Rick and Morty people is all I'm going to say. But, you know, they're all going to just wait until the incest stuff bleeds or breeds over into the Marvel stuff because everyone's just going to get a job there anyways. Well, we got a little bit more time left, you know. Should we talk about some comic books that came out recently? I just finished the Ant-Man series by Al Ewing and Tom Riley. It was spectacular and fun. Pimtron turned out to be the big bad of the entire season. And I'm like, that's really cool. Like, the fact is, like, you don't kill him. You send him away through time using the Time Master's gun so we could deal with him later if we have to. That's kind of exciting. The future Ant-Man coming here is like, I'm actually not here to, like, deal with this. I just want to learn how to, like, use ants to make shit. And now the world's going to be dead because of me. I like that. A good use of every Ant-Man, too. Old Hank was in character. Old young past Hank was in character. Scott Lang was actually surprisingly well written. Scott Lang, again, I've said this a bit, but it's a very hit or miss with how you write Scott Lang in today's climate. You either go too far into like the Paul Rudd-isms of the character, or you don't go far enough into it. And it's a good balance. But they made it work. The Eric O'Grady stuff, they also made the Eric O'Grady stuff work really well. So I'm very proud that found the right balance and was able to strike the right chord. This entire book was awesome. These are 4 issues of Ant-Man comic books. I think they are worth reading. And come January, we're getting the Wasp version from Al Ewing, which I'm super excited for because anybody who knows me knows I'm a huge fan of the Wasp, one of my favorite characters in Marvel. And I'm waiting for Janet to get her big break because she hasn't had it in a while. So give me it. I love that book. That was really fun. I just, before going live, just put up Siren's Gate, which is the new one from Shannon Mayer, which is a really interesting book. Kind of Interview with a Vampire-esh, where it's like this old, I'm assuming like Lady Rose, like this older being seducing, like, you know, your Grey Worm-esque character. The painting is beautiful. Like the artwork is like these really cool paintedly gorgeous landscapes and characters and big breasts and big monsters, and you're like, thank you. Like, I don't have problems with any of those things, so I will see what you got. And that's Dynamite. That's kind of like Dynamite's bread and butter. It's like, you like Red Sonja, you like Vampirella, you like Purgatory, you like, who are the other ones they have? Panthea? You like, oh yeah, Deja Thoris, you like those sexy ladies? Boom, here's a new one for you. And she's a writer. That was a fine book. I wouldn't say it's overly done. It was just fine. I also read the first issue of TMNT The Armageddon Game, something I have been dreading to get into because I am so far behind on my Ninja Turtle reading when it comes to IDW. I think I stopped at like City of War or City of War, which is like, oh, New York City's going to war. That's when I stopped. That was 7 years ago, maybe not 7. It was a lifetime ago. But I just said, okay, I'll start with Armageddon Game, see what we got. I read some of Opening Moves. I didn't get a chance to finish it. Here's what surprised me. I'll be honest. I didn't read any of Opening Moves. I don't know why I said I did. I didn't. Here's what surprised me. The Rat King is a trickster god from an unknown dimension, and he's part of like the pantheon of gods. That was a big swing this comic book just took. I'm like, hold up. Not the mutant rat man? You're going to go trickster god for this guy? Okay. He's putting together some machination. He's working with Baxter Stockman, Krang, who's in Leatherhead's body, and Null. And Null is like another evil, like underlord character or something. It's like, okay. And then we got Mutant Town, which is, I guess, Arkham City, but mutants or something. And so the Turtles have their plan together. One of the side stories is like, okay, Oroku Saki's going to go join Leo and Mikey. They're going to go head to Dimension X, talk to the Neutrinos, and just be like, you help us in the war? We're like, we can't get involved in your game, but we can give Zach and Kiri extended leave so they could be part of this book, but peace out. No more of the neutrino stuff. I'm like, okay, that's an idea. Okay. We also want to use April's journalism and reporter ties to publicly oust Baxter Stockman. And I'm like, okay, that's kind of fun. And then we see like these dark version of the Turtles called Dark Waters that are attacking like a Stockman's speech somewhere. And I'm like, okay. That was a lot to grab onto, you know? As somebody who hasn't been actively reading the book, that was a lot to grab onto, you know? I'm like, oh, okay, there's gods, and then we got like an actual like city town in like, okay, so why's Krang? Okay, Shredder's working with them, but Krang's doing this thing. That one's a scorpion. That one is called Herman the Hermit Crab. He's a soldier for Old Hob, but we're gonna get him out and work in the fields. Whoa, Splinter's dead too, by the way. Why? I don't know. It was a lot, but I'm like, am I going to continue? I think I'll do a big roundup review at the end when the entire series is done, but I was just, this is a lot to process. For somebody who is jumping in on Armageddon Game, don't. I can't recommend you do it. It's cool to see like, oh, look at all these new characters in the Ninja Turtle world, but I'm like, maybe we should just go back and start over, you know? Just, let's all get there slowly. Because this book has been actively going on for a very long time now. Like, the same ongoing Ninja Turtle comic book has been going. I remember, I have issue 1. I have the first issue. I was a baby boy when that came out. And I'm like, I cannot wait to read this. Now to think they are fighting trickster gods in a game of war that could change all of reality, working with the Shredder and the Neutrinos to do so. Whoa, okay. Big contrast. You know, the first issue, Raphael is missing. This issue, the game is afoot, and we're going to be playing it right now, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, yeah, okay. So that was interesting. You know, that was a lot. That was a lot of book to read. Department of Truth was great this week, too. Not the best issue of the bunch, but I like what that's doing. It's way better than Nice House on the Lake and what's going on there. But I don't know, not a big week. Like, my comic book reading's kind of been slowing down, maybe just because there's not a lot of stuff out for me. And, you know, this weekend, we're going to have a lot of stuff to talk about. New She-Hulk tomorrow, where I think they're going to finally introduce Daredevil because they kind of teased it at the beginning. They're like, hey, here's a little clip with the Leapfrog. Oh, that Leapfrog clip was so good, where they just like, hey, here's all the people auditioning for Leapfrog. It's Tatiana, it's Ginger, it's Mark, and Kermit the Frog. I'm like, oh, honey, don't you dare tease me with Muppets. You have not done anything with Muppets, baby. Come on. That looks cool, but Daredevil is there. He smiled. People are like, oh, that's not Daredevil. Like, it is. I hope people can accept that. They can't, though, because people suck and people are annoying and people don't like good things. Then Werewolf by Night is also this week, and I think Monster High the movie is this week, so I'll be talking about those throughout the weekend. We do have a Halloween-themed The Batmaning of to talk about during this week, which I'm not going to spoil for people because I'm still working out the detail. I don't have like my pitch ready yet, but I was like, well, we're doing it's a Halloween month. Let's do a Halloween character, somebody that I probably wouldn't have done so soon in the lineup of characters I had planned out, but fuck it, let's do it. Let's talk about this character. It's kind of fun. And of course, Amsterdam. Am I going to talk about Amsterdam? I was really pumped because I saw like, oh, maybe Tar is playing here, and I cannot wait to see that Cate Blanchett one and Triangle of Sadness, but those are not going to be in my city for a couple more weeks. So is Amsterdam going to be the big release I have to talk about? Please don't make me watch Amsterdam. I don't want to. I don't want to see that. Oh. But I'll do anything for the bros, you know? Like, I will see this film. I will actively tell you, you know, David O. Russell's a piece of shit and somebody you shouldn't like and a serial abuser. And, you know, maybe the wrong people are working with him when they have a message that's anti everything he's doing. But whatever, it is something that exists now. And we'll have to deal with that. But nope, you can expect more Daredevil talk, She-Hulk talk, Monster High talk, Werewolf by Night talk coming up very soon. And I guess we could, I guess the Lords of the Rings of Power is ending soon too. So that will be something to talk about later. Cool. Like, I don't know. A lot of content, a lot of stuff. And before we go, I think we'll end on a little bit of on a sour note, just kind of talking a little bit more about the toy world, which I haven't talked about for a while again. So, HasLab Ghost Rider is probably not going to get funded. They just revealed Madeline Pryor. You can get the Goblin Queen as your new little addition, but it's like, that's not the accurate costume, and nobody's going to buy it for that. I'm sorry, honey. No one's going to do it. So, go back it if you're interested. I personally am not interested enough to go back that property, but if anybody here is genuinely excited to see that, please let me know. I don't think they're going to get the funding, but whatever, man. Whatever. Should we stall for a little bit more time? Maybe try to get to the hour mark. You know, we're a couple minutes away, but now we've been cut off a few times this week, so it's kind of good to have a full episode. We were kind of cut off towards the middle of it a little bit, but all good in my hood, baby. I'm just glad we are able to keep up the content, keep the train rolling, and talk about some amazing stuff. So thank you guys for watching this episode of the Geek Beach. We had a lot of fun here. It's an earlier edition. If this is something we should keep doing, maybe we'll keep doing it. Or Wednesdays, early Wednesdays. No more Resident Alien for me to talk about, so I could do Wednesdays more if I wanted to. Anyways, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. As always, you can check me out on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. And as always, I will catch you guys in the next one. Have fun, stay safe, happy Halloween, and good luck. Should have cut it right there so you guys wouldn't see me drinking the water, but you get it. Later, skaters.